If you're paying attention to modern politics, you probably feel like we are living through a uniquely exhausting moment. The constant chaos, the extreme polarization, the sense that the system is breaking down, it feels entirely new. But that anxiety comes from a lack of historical context. We have actually lived through this exact type of political environment before. The late 19th century Gilded Age was defined by the same bitter partisan divides and the same aggressive push for extreme economic nationalism that we are seeing today. To understand where we are now, we have to look at the parallels between two specific leaders, Benjamin Harrison, the 23rd president, and Donald Trump, the 45th and 47th president. This matrix maps their paths to power. Both won the Electoral College despite losing the popular vote. Next, both locked in conservative judicial supermajorities. Finally, both were voted out and replaced by the exact men they previously ran against. When you strip away the partisan emotion and evaluate their actual policy playbooks side by side, a clear question emerges. Which president's miscalculations ultimately inflicted more damage on the country? Recognizing these historical cycles allows us to step back from the daily news panic. Instead, we can build a scorecard of presidential failures based on outcomes rather than rhetoric. Our first category of failure is extreme economic protectionism. Tracing the path from input to trade-off, we start with Harrison's 1890 McKinley tariff, pushing rates to 50%. The immediate outcome was massive federal revenue, but consumer prices spiked sharply upward. Over a century later, Donald Trump applied the same logic. He imposed steep protectionist barriers, including a universal 10% tariff on nearly all imported goods. The global financial market reaction was swift. Investors began pulling their money out in a capital flight trend dubbed "Sell America." For both administrations, protective barriers aimed at isolation reliably resulted in domestic economic collapse. Harrison's McKinley tariff laid the foundation for the financial panic of 1893, causing severe bank failures and labor unrest. Trump's universal tariffs drew a similar shock, contributing to the 2025 stock market crash. Aggressive tariffs offer short-term cover for specific manufacturers, but they predictably export the costs to consumers and drive long-term global economic instability. The second category of presidential miscalculation is unoffset federal spending and tax cuts. Harrison worked closely with what became known as the Billion-Dollar Congress. Together, they enacted massive federal payouts that quickly burned through the Treasury's existing surplus. A major part of that spending was the Dependent and Disability Pension Act, which provided generous financial support to union veterans and their families. It was a popular move, but it cost the government over $1 billion. Harrison compounded this financial strain with the Sherman Silver Purchase Act. Appealing to Western mining interests, it forced the government to buy millions of ounces of silver, which nearly depleted the U.S. Treasury's gold reserves. Trump approached unoffset spending from the revenue side. His primary economic tools were sweeping tax cuts, starting with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, proposing to eliminate taxes on tips, taxes on overtime pay, and Social Security benefits. Both strategies do exactly what they are designed to do. They deliver intense, immediate political loyalty from specific blocks of voters. This chart compares the financial results. While Harrison drained a massive federal surplus down to the bone, Trump's tax cuts and spending policies have added trillions of dollars to the national debt. Buying voter loyalty through aggressive deficit spending and unoffset tax cuts leaves the federal government financially defenseless when the next major crisis hits. Our final category of analysis is executive governance, specifically how these presidents utilized executive power to bypass traditional checks. Harrison frequently used executive power to bypass congressional gridlock. He pushed hard for the rapid admission of 6 new Western states to secure Republican electoral strength, and aggressively expanded the Navy. But his push for territorial expansion had a severe human cost. He forced Native American tribes to cede millions of acres of land, a policy of displacement that culminated in the U.S. Army massacring 150 Sioux men, women, and children at Wounded Knee. Trump's approach to executive power focuses on unilaterally forcing his agenda through the federal government, often by removing established administrative boundaries. He empowered the Department of Government Efficiency to dismantle the administrative state, firing thousands of civil servants and stripping agencies of statutory functions. He also ended the post-Watergate norm of an independent Justice Department. His administration actively pressured prosecutors to advance cases against political opponents and aligned civil society organizations. Disregarding democratic norms and attempting to overturn election results actively breeds domestic unrest, culminating in physical threats to the republic like the January 6th Capitol attack. When a president overrides basic institutional norms, it transforms standard legislative friction into an active vulnerability for the entire constitutional system. Bringing this all together, we use this scorecard to total results across 3 categories: economic damage, institutional degradation, and global instability. Both operated as populist economic nationalists, making severe miscalculations to appease their bases, driving up prices and burning national wealth. Harrison's policies crashed the economy in 1893, but were contained within standard legislative strategy. The comparison shows a clear divergence. While Harrison caused localized failures, Trump's actions reached the very structures of the DOJ and civil service. Calculation errors in trade are recoverable. Systemic challenges to the independence of the justice system represent a different scale of risk to the constitutional framework. The difference between the 2 men is clear. One president caused a severe but recoverable economic recession. The other actively drove democratic backsliding by targeting the foundations of the republic itself. If you are watching the current economy and feeling anxious about tariffs and deficits, history shows us that this financial whiplash is part of a predictable cycle. The nation survived the financial panics of the Gilded Age, and the economy will eventually self-correct from current missteps. But if you are concerned about institutional stability, pay attention. The active targeting of civil society and the erosion of legal independence are what separate modern events from past political cycles. The deliberate dismantling of the justice system and the administrative state must never be normalized as standard partisan politics. Acknowledging these historical patterns is the first vital step. It allows us to stop succumbing to daily anxiety and start demanding accountability.